Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Against All Odds. And as I say at the beginning of every episode, it is a purely selfish podcast because I get to speak to people that inspire me. And today I'm so excited to welcome George Tanner to the show. How are you, my lovely?
I am really good and I'm really excited to be here. I've been listening to all your podcasts and they're really inspiring. I love them. They're great.
Now, you are a professional organiser, aren't you?
That's right.
And we just spoke before the podcast that actually confuses people. It's a bit like when I say I'm a brain coach, they're like, what?
Yeah, I think people get confused. I think it's getting better when you've got shows like Sort Your Life Out with Stacey Solomon and things like that. People are starting to get the idea. But I still think until you say the word declutter, people are sort of like, what does that mean, professional organizer? So yeah, it's just a way to encapsulate someone that goes and declutters or helps people declutter and organize their homes and their lives effectively. Because
And yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I need to point out your bookcase as well. Everybody just have a look at that bookcase. It's colour order. How amazing is that?
This brings so much joy, honestly. No, I mean, no one's allowed to read any books there, mine. That's the
Yeah.
thing, right? You can't take the book off the bookshelf because it just ruin it. But
Does
yeah, no,
anybody
it looks
wind you
good.
up and just move one? Just
No, I don't think I'll be that
that's cruel though.
sensitive.
That's my cruel mind.
Yeah.
Right, so I always ask people because normally when I interview people, there's normally a big why
Mm.
they do things. So how did you get to become a professional organizer?
So my background, I went to uni, did a degree, nearly dropped out because of stress, but carried on. My parents were like, just get a degree anyway. And I was qualified as a teacher. Thought I'm not going to do that. And then just went through this like existence of bumbling from one thing to another and ended up somehow becoming a project manager in IT.
Right.
Um, and then I worked for the government and I worked on big sort of secret hush hush for your eyes only projects. And working in IT as a female, still now, I mean, I've only left 5 years ago, but even then it was tough, you were constantly having to prove yourself. And, I had this great reputation, but still I'd sit at tables with, as my friends always call, stale pale males. But you'd be like this in a room of predominantly white people, white old men, middle-aged old men, and you'd be sort of sitting there and you'd be looked over and then you'd have to keep saying things and saying them again. And I was working on really stressful projects. And then one
Mm.
day I remember being in the garden and it was the time when my son as well, he's now 13. So this has got to be when he was like 8 or 9. And I was consistently doing that run to school, run from school. So, 1 minute I'll be on a call to somebody, the next minute I'll be at the school gates, like muting them and going, hi, darling, have you had a good day? Oh, yeah, 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 do that. No, hello, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And I stood in the garden one day and I thought, I can't breathe. I
Mm.
actually can't breathe. And I just stood there and this like physical response to obviously all the stress that was building up in my system. And I thought, I don't know what's going on. This is really weird. And I talked to my boss at the time, who was brilliant. And he was like, you need to take some time out because you're obviously it's just too much. And so I took some time out and then I just sat there and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore because I didn't make a decision to do this. I've just
Yeah.
happened on it and I'm good at it, but I just feel like I'm having to prove myself all the time. And I was like, what, 45 at the time. So I was like, I've done this. Do I want to be doing this in another 10 years' time? Um, so I got signed off from work because I was so stressed and I thought I need to do something else. And years ago, I talked about helping people get organized and thought, oh, that'd be a really good idea. Won't it be amazing? And I remember thinking, oh, maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should do that now. It'd be a
Mm.
really good thing to do, start up a business. And I chatted to a friend of mine and she said, don't be ridiculous. Who's going to pay for you to go into their house and tidy up for them? I was like, I don't know. And then literally a week later, she said, I was chatting to a friend of mine and she said she could do with some help. So it was like, oh, let's go and try it, see if it works, see what happens.
Yeah.
And I went along and I was in my element. I absolutely loved it. It was just really intuitive to me. It all worked. I found working with her really easy, could understand what she needed. I could see it. I could see the space in the room and I walked away feeling so elevated in a way I haven't for years doing the job I was doing. And I just thought, that's it. This is what I've got to do for the rest of my life. I've
That's
got,
amazing.
and I think it's that thing of, so many times when you work in jobs, you never can see the people that you're impacting, even though people will tell you, well, this is really helping this person or that's really helping that person. Um, but when you do something like this, and probably like you feel with the coaching as well, you see it and you
Yeah.
know you have absolutely made a difference to somebody that day.
Yeah.
And there is nothing like that
Yeah.
in the world.
No better feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because decluttering, like you say, we spoke, it's quite big in America, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But over here, I mean, it is growing.
It is, but I think in America, people don't think anything about getting a professional organizer in. They're like, it's just, and there's no shame about it. It's what you do. It's like hiring an interior designer. It's like in hiring, like somebody to come and do your garden. You just
Yeah.
do it. It's just a service that you do. Whereas here, there's still quite a lot of shame. So people
Yeah.
worry about being judged about their houses. They don't, like for me to I do get some referrals, but obviously a lot of people don't talk about the fact that I've been in and helped them because
Yeah.
they're embarrassed to admit that they can't do it, because there's this whole thing for women about, you can do it all right. You can be a mom, you can run a job, you can look after the house, you can do it all right. And if you can't do any of those, there's something wrong with you, so
Yeah.
it's this whole constant feeling of like, I'm a failure if I can't juggle all of this stuff, then I'm failing. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff to get through. I think here still there's a big change in mind shift, I think, mindset that has got to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And admitting that, we all need a bit of help
Yeah,
organising. And I think when you're in it as well, you can't see the wood for the trees.
not
But
at
that's
all.
like anything in life. That's why, you ask for outside help.
Yeah, and I think again, and I know I speak for me definitely. I think generally women are not great at asking for help.
You
We're
are
not.
right there. You are right there. I speak to a lot of ladies that are overwhelmed,
Yeah,
and I just think, with the modern world, and you get social media as well, where everybody posts their best life. So
yeah,
you'll have mums that are, juggling everything, looking absolutely pristine,
yeah,
and like they're handling life, and it just makes you feel worse.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
And that's, I'm really grateful for I work with a lot of clients who I haven't taken photos for a long while, but when I first started out, I used to take a lot of photos for clients that would allow me to. And I
Yeah.
was so grateful to them, because the whole idea of normalizing the way that we live, and that everybody's got mess. And even when you go into someone's house and it looks pristine, if you open a cupboard door, that it all falls out at you. They were all
Yeah.
living under that same,
Yeah.
like we were saying earlier, it's like it all looks great here, but what's behind the camera?
Yeah, because
There's all,
I openly
what's all over the floor?
yeah, I openly admitted. So this is a screen
Yeah,
like that. But until a few months ago, it was hiding a load of shite,
yeah,
because this room needed decluttering for about 18 months, and I kept putting it off. And I started reading, I can't remember his name, is it Joshua Becker?
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I love that I mean, obviously he's American, and Americans get
yeah,
it, but it's a whole mindset shift, isn't it? It's not about, right, what do you need, what can you take to charity, what goes to tip. That
yeah,
you need to change your whole mindset around
yeah.
it.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing that the way I work now. So I'll work with clients where I go in and do stuff for them. So I actually literally just go in and spend a day. But we do a lot of chatting about what's going on and what's happening. So I do that sort of stuff. And that tends to be when people are so flat out and so busy that they just can't get their head around it. They just need that kickstart. And sometimes someone will say to me, I need the whole house doing. And I'll spend a few days with them. And then they're like, actually, I think I can do the rest now. Because sometimes it's
Yeah.
because they feel so overwhelmed. And once I've cleared a couple of rooms, they're like, ah, right, okay. But yeah, that mind shift the membership that I started last year, I've got a membership I do online, and I've only got a really small number in the membership at the moment. And part of that was because I really wanted to make it work well for the people that are in it. Because for me, a lot of it is mind shift, like mindset change. We do that. We do when they join, I do a roadmap session with them, and it's not just about, oh, you need to go and like clear that cupboard. That's not what it's about. It's more like what's going on in the house, who's helping, how are they helping, are they helping, how do we get them to help, how do we get everyone to see that it's not your stuff, how do
Yeah,
we start to get everyone to take ownership, and so it's a big thing about, I think, again, as women we tend to think it's ours, and it's not ours. The
yeah,
house is not ours.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
just like, why do we do that? Why do we just take it all on and go, oh, it's all ours? And yeah, one of the things I talk about, and I've talked about this on social media, but I've said, the thing that I think is really interesting is if you find yourself saying, can you empty the dishwasher for me? Then the thing you need to stop doing is the for me bit, because
that's
it's not
interesting.
you.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's just like, can you empty the dishwasher?
Yeah,
For me, it's,
yeah.
it's like
It's
that's
like we
part of the
we've
house.
claimed it all.
Yeah.
But I think that's where part of the overwhelm is, because we take on all this responsibility, like everything's ours, and we
Yeah.
we need to do that, and we can only do it as good as that. Nobody can do it any better, and then we just struggle. We just burn out and get overwhelmed straight away. So it doesn't really make sense why we cling on to it so much.
No, and I think it's partly we can. I think you're right. I think some of it's a control thing. Well, I know that for me anyway. I'm definitely
Yeah,
a bit of a control freak. So some of it's that, and because people won't do it the way I want to do it, I want it done. And you have to recognize that if that's going on for you, right, you really do
yeah,
have to
yeah,
recognize that. But then some of it, I think, is because we do that, then everybody else goes, "Oh, okay, it's yours." So
yeah. We'll
then,
quite happily let you own that dishwasher.
yeah. Exactly. So then they're all like, "Oh, okay, that's yours then." And
Because
so
we
then
do
there is
exactly
this
the same, wouldn't we? We
this
would do
complete abandonment of everything. Is like,
exactly.
and one of the things that I was chatting to one of my members the other day, and we were talking about people doing stuff in the house, and I said, think about what is in the house that you could get your kids to do or your partners to do. And I said, but think about the things you really don't care about the way that they're done, things that you can let go, so
Mm.
I don't know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But just think, okay, so I get my son now, he's 13, he changes his bed and cleans his bedroom, right? So that's, as he got a bit older, I was like, right, now you can change your bed. And now every like 3 months, I go in and do it because he doesn't do a great job, but it's good enough and he's
Yeah,
learning. And I don't want him to be a man that doesn't do the stuff.
yeah.
I want him to own it. So I'm
That's,
working with him very much on the moment. His other job is emptying the bins. And I'm very much working on the moment saying, I don't need to be telling you. It's not just about emptying the bins. The next step for me is also that you see the bins need emptying,
yeah,
because I don't, that I do think, again, it's that responsibility thing. Is even if you're not doing it all, you're telling everyone to do it. And it's like you
yeah,
think nobody else sees it. You're like,
yeah. You're so right.
yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
well, and everyone's like, well, you know what to do. And it's like, no, but I didn't. It's a bit like when you have kids, isn't it? This child wasn't born with a manual that I then read and went, oh, yeah, I've got all the answers. It's like, I didn't grow up knowing how to run a house and do all that stuff. You just learn it through trial and error.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you need everyone else to learn it as well.
yeah. That's so right. That is so right. We spoke about as well. I've got a question for you. Know if you
Mm,
help people to start decluttering, do you
mm.
notice them like if somebody's like overspending or buying things that they probably don't need? Do you see that fall in people, like when they've realised how much stuff they've got to declutter?
Yeah, I think I could say everyone I work with has a thing that
Yeah,
is their thing. Some people like to have a lot of shoes, or some people like to buy gifts. Like I've worked with a lot of women who've got gift cupboards.
Yeah.
There tends to be something,
Right.
but again, for me, I think, when you were talking about that mindset shift, it's like you've got to start somewhere. And I think nobody needs to feel attacked and nobody needs to feel under threat. And
Mm.
it it really is to do with making people feel comfortable with how they're living.
Yeah, yeah.
And if somebody's really keen on having loads of stuff, then I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you really want to do, then let's make room for that stuff. So
Yeah,
actually, then that means a choice of getting rid of perhaps some other stuff. So if that's what's really important to you, then let's find a way for you to be able to do that and have that. So I think I never want to make anybody feel less than. My whole thing is about making people feel good about the choices that they make.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I think, like
absolutely.
you say, we've got so much in social media, and everyone already feels rubbish.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't want to walk in with any judgment, going, "Oh, you've got too much of this." I mean, there are times. I mean, the people that I work with, I suppose they get to know me because I come on social media a lot. I talk a lot on Insta. And I story a lot. And part of the reason I do that is because no one is going to let me in their house unless they get to know me, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And part of the reason people want me is because they know I'm also going to, say the truth. I'm not going to
Yeah,
be unkind, but if I need to question something, I will question it. And, there's usually a bit of banter that goes along with it. It's usually like, well, you got enough there? And it'll be a bit of a joke, it'll be a kind way to do it. It won't be I
yeah, yeah,
just, yeah, people have got enough on their plate. The women I work with are just doing so much. I admire them all so much. They're all so amazing. And it makes me feel really sad that they feel so responsible for everything.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And do you know what? That's absolutely everywhere. The amount of ladies that I do speak to that are overwhelmed, that don't actually, they've probably been overwhelmed for that long, they don't even recognize they're in a state of overwhelm until I
yeah,
start talking. And I think it's really important, like, as we're saying this, it's like we've been in that boat as well, you
yeah.
know, because I just think it is the modern world, we do.
It's expectations, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
expectations. It's what we carry with us, and that whole thing, oh, you can have everything, you can have it all. And it's like, well, you can, but you will actually burn out and things will start to drop, and it will impact your health and how you, view life. And, because no one can bring up, I always talk about how I work with working women, and people will say to me, but you know, then you're just excluding all these mothers. And I'm like, no, no, no. Anybody that's got a child is a working mom.
Yeah, yeah,
That's your
yes.
job, right? Anyone who's a
Yeah,
mum is a working mom. And then
yeah,
you might have paid work on top of that as well. It's like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
everyone I work with has got at least one job.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
you
And I
know,
think as well, it's like when you are overwhelmed and things like that, the last thing you want to do is go back to a house that's cluttered. I mean, I do a lot of training on focus, and the first
mm,
thing I'll say to people at the desk, make sure it's clutter free, because it
yeah,
just fills your mind. And when it's your home's your safe place.
yeah.
So to go back there, let's say that you've been to work and you've gone back, like your heart just sinks as you walk through the door.
It is, it's horrible. And there's that, but then there's also the flip side of that is that you don't want it to be like that, but then the few hours you get at the weekend when you could do something about it, you don't want to do something about it because you want to sit and watch TV or go to the park with your kids, or so it's like it's this real double-edged sword of like, I don't want to live in it, but actually I also don't want to spend what little precious time I've
Yeah,
got to actually do it.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
really difficult.
yeah. So I admitted, obviously, that this room was really bad, right? And I
And you've
started
done it
reading.
now though, but you've done it.
I've done it. Yeah,
Well
this a
done.
little bit of, yeah, yeah, yeah. It took a while, mate. I'm not gonna lie.
Doesn't matter. Done
And
it.
like I say, I'm the brain coach, and I shouldn't be procrastinating and putting things off. But I did when it came to decluttering. I mean,
Yeah.
I am working, the rest of the house isn't that bad, but I'm still decluttering bit by bit. But it just felt like I would actually just not open the door,
Mm.
because it's like every time I open the door, it's like, oh my God, it just seems so much. And it's a box room, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not a big room. But it was like I was standing at the bottom of Everest and I was
Mm.
trying to walk it with a bikini on and flip flops. It's, it's the only way. And the only reason I did ended up doing it is because I'd actually done a training in a company about procrastination, and my friend was with me at the time, and she picked up on this, and she went, "Well, when you
Yeah.
get that room sorted, what's your next step? What's the smallest step you can
Mm.
take?" Because it's over, that in itself is overwhelming. Where to start?
Yeah. It is. And that's the thing is, and I think for me, that's everything that I've done through the whole time. I mean, obviously, when I go in and help someone, that's different because I just go in and tear
Yeah,
through the place like a rate of knots. And it is easier for me than anybody else doing it because I'm not emotionally attached to anything.
attached. Yeah, yeah,
But for everything else that I talk about, it's always starting small, starting little, doing one thing, setting a timer, like just taking a small thing. And it's so overwhelming about knowing where to start. But the truth of it is there isn't any. You just have to pick up the box and do the box. And I think for me, organizing and decluttering, like you're saying, it's a state of mind for me.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's something that you should do all the time. You just should
Mm,
just be part of your everyday life of how you approach life. And there is something that you can do to start to make things better, but it should all be really little tasks because it's just too much. You know, I remember when I was younger and I used to, like when you decide to clear out your wardrobe and you
oh
do
yeah.
that thing like where you empty your wardrobe onto your bed at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and then you realise that what a huge mistake that was.
Yeah, you're sort of half an hour in and then you're bored and you've like glazed over and you're like, oh.
Yeah, and you can't go to bed because your whole wardrobe's on it.
And that's the thing is that's usually so whenever I work with clients, like I go into their houses, it's so funny because I make an absolute mess. I mean, it is just everything is on the floor, everything is out. I'm starting to like categorize things while I'm working. I'm thinking about where things are going to go and all that sort of stuff. But people are walking after about 3 hours, and I'm stood there, and they're like, "Oh, I've got one client I work with, and I'll say to her, I need you to come up and just check a few things for me." I said, but don't be overwhelmed and don't look at it. Just look at the things I'm showing you. She's like, I hate it, but I know I'm going to love it in the end, but I hate it. But it's like you have to make such a massive amount of mess that even that then it's overwhelming, right? Because you're trying
Yeah,
to
yeah,
fix the mess, but you have to make more mess to fix the mess. There's
yeah,
just no way of getting around it.
yeah. Have you ever had anybody walk in the room and go, "Oh my God, I haven't seen that for ages," and then start
Oh,
picking things up, and then like that, it's like they've been
all the
telling you
time.
it all over again.
It's either that or it's like, oh, I've been looking for that. Is like one of the most common things I hear is like, oh, I've been looking for that. So it's you see that all the time, or people have like lost treasures and they sit with stuff and again, that's why it's good to have me in because I can let them do that while I'm doing something else. So I
Yeah,
can be like, okay, you look at that thing there while I'm just like running through this other stuff and like, trying to work
yeah.
out what we're going to do with it. But yeah, there's a lot of
Do you?
things. Emotions, but this is the thing, emotions can be like attached to anything. Do you know what I mean? People
Yeah,
think emotional stuff is like their kids' drawings or whatever, but I don't know. I always talk about in lockdown. I remember in lockdown, I bought this stupid paper mask thing that I was going to do with my son. And it was just, oh, we're going to have this great time and it's going to be brilliant. And we sat down to do it and it was horrendous, right? It was really difficult to do. And we sat there and after about an hour, I think I was shouting, he was crying, and then I was crying. It all just deteriorated into like this
that wasn't the
fantastic,
plan.
all gone horribly wrong, right? And I was like, oh my God, what have we done? And then I put it in the cupboard and I was like, we'll do that, we'll do that, we'll do that. And for me, every time I open up that cupboard, the emotions that hit me every time I open that cupboard was like my failure, like how my hope, my failure, my like everything. It took me 3 months to throw it away. It took me 3 months to
Mm,
admit that I wasn't going to do it, that we weren't going to have those moments, that it just needed to go. And I felt so relieved when I did. But it was a bloody paper mask. It wasn't, Granny's
Yeah,
heirloom, anything of any meaning. It was a paper mask, but I'd attached all this emotion to it, then it made it difficult for me to throw away.
I was about to say, because that's actually a thing, isn't it? Because your brain will, even though you know you've got to get rid of things, because we do keep crap.
Yeah.
We do keep crap, and your brain will try and justify why you need to keep it.
Yeah.
So when I moved house, it's like 5 years ago, and I'm packing up all my stuff. I actually got divorced at the time, so it was a bit emotional anyway. But I
Yeah.
came across. So the first iPhone I had was an iPhone 4, and I kept every single bloody iPhone box at that point to an iPhone 10, right? And in my head, I'm like, Amy, why have you got all these iPhone boxes? And my brain was instantly going, because you never know when you might have needed one. It's like, what?
True. Yeah, it is. And then the minute you start doing it, you then keep doing it, and then you can't stop doing it.
Yeah. Another thing as well, because I used to work in estate agents, and we used to say to people that were moving, because 9 times out of 10, when you move and you start to pack your things up, you realise how much crap that you've collected over the years. So you not only have you bought it, you've had given it, and we've had it from everywhere. So we used to say to people, right, when you pack your stuff up, if you don't unpack it at the other end and you've not unpacked it for say 5 years, just bin the box, because you've never needed it. But that's still hard to do.
Yeah, it is very hard to do, because people worry that there might be that thing in there,
That thing
that
that you've
thing,
never needed, but you might just need it.
or it might be that brooch or that badge or that something that somebody gave them that, has got real meaning, and it's just got caught up in that box. And so then that box doesn't get thrown away, right? It just gets kept, and it just sits there, and then it's like, oh. And the idea of going through it is massive. I always think, for me, like now when people sell houses, because there's a lot more staging goes on now, don't they? Like people
Yeah.
stage their houses much more. And so I get involved with people sometimes when they're doing that early bit, and it's a perfect time to declutter, because I'm just like, don't move any of this stuff. Avoid having the box that you move and then never look at. Just let's get rid of it before you even move. It's like, let's do that thing of really thinking about what you actually want to move into your new house and
Yeah.
getting rid of the rest.
Yeah, because you just it's like you say, as you go on through the years, it just becomes the norm, just to collect stuff, and then it goes in a cupboard, then you forget about the cupboard. And then you come to move and you're like, Jesus Christ, why have I still got this? Do you get that with clothes as well? That when someone had like a really comfortable pair of trainers that will not make it through the next day, but they can't get rid of the trainers because they're comfortable.
The thing that I find the most difficult is when people are keeping clothes that they're going to fit into.
I was about to say, yeah.
And that is a really challenging one, because they're like, because again, for me, it's that narrative that, that you need to be that thing, whether, like that you need to lose that weight, that you need to, and I'm just like, just get rid of it. And, if you've ever lose weight, go and buy yourself something new to celebrate. It's just like, don't. But the idea that you're opening up your wardrobe every day and looking at something that is making you feel rubbish,
Yeah.
because you're looking at it going, well, I can't fit into that because, I've had 2 kids and I've like eaten food. I'm not 20 anymore. My waist isn't this big anymore. I've like lived a life, and it's just, don't do that.
Yeah, because that's very common, isn't it?
Yeah, and that whole idea that actually, what you want to do when you open up your wardrobe is go, gotta put that on because it makes me feel great. And I'm gonna, you want it to be full of things that you really want to wear. I was another member I was talking about recently, we were chatting about, she was saying she wanted to get started and she wanted to give herself the push. And she was saying, I really want to do my underwear drawer and my sock drawer. And it's like, that's such a good place to start, because the idea that every morning you open up something that makes you feel great, and you get rid of the knickers that you don't like wearing anymore. And, when you get to a certain age, you can chuck your thongs out because you don't have to convince anybody anymore. You can just put your big pants on and all that sort of stuff. But it's like, she did it, and she was like, every morning now I wake up and the first thing that I look at every day is this organized space, and it makes me feel happy.
Yeah,
So those are the sorts of things that you need to be thinking about, is that, that, and you're right, coming home to a cluttered environment, nobody wants it. You want to have that feeling of like, yeah, I feel good.
yeah,
But
and
it's,
it's the simple things, isn't it?
yeah,
It is
yeah.
the
But as
simple
women,
things.
you just want to be wearing clothes that make you feel great, and
Yeah,
not things that are saying, oh, do you remember when you could fit into this?
yeah, that's so right. That's
Yeah,
so right. And we spoke as well about like the modern society and how easy it is to get a dopamine rush and kind of keep buying
yeah,
things as well. I know there's a lot of people fall into this. I fell into it as well. I think every single person can fall into this because
hmm,
of how easy it is to shop online now, and you press that button and arrives the next day.
yeah,
That can lead to massive kind of problems where hoarding comes in and buying too much, and it's a very vicious loop, isn't it?
yeah. It is. It's again, it is really difficult, isn't it? Because that thing of trying to make yourself feel better, you're trying to get, chase after that dopamine hit, is really difficult. It's a really hard habit to break.
Yeah, yeah,
Really hard. And I think by the time people come to me, I think once you start clearing out the things, it's easier for people to see,
yeah,
and it starts to get a little bit, and again, it's, I don't know, one of the things that always happens when I speak to people before I go to their homes, or when I'm working with people online and they're saying to me, well, what do I need? What do I need to get organized? And I'm like, you don't need anything. If we go through the process and I think there are some things that will helpful, will give a space structure, or whatever, I'll let you know. But let's do the work to get the stuff out first. Let's
yeah,
not
yeah,
put the things that you've got into things, because
yeah,
then you're doing is putting things you don't need into something else.
yeah,
But there is this sort of like, oh, I can buy things and that will make me organized, and it's like, no, it won't actually. you know Buying more stuff, buying boxes to put stuff in doesn't make you organized. It just means your stuff's in boxes. So
yeah.
yeah, it's really difficult. It is. I feel it all the time. You're bombarded all the time. I just think the messages that you get all the time for everything. If you bought this, you're that, and if you do this, you're that, and if you wear this, you'll be this, and it's a lot, isn't it, to take on?
It is. It is. Life is very hectic.
Yeah,
The outside world is very busy, and I think it's okay for any woman to turn around and go, "Do you know what? I just need a little bit of help here
yeah.
with this." Because it is an art that you do need to learn, because we're not taught that at school, mate.
No, and this is the thing that I think as well, and we all do it, right? We all do this thing where we then just do the same thing to our kids, because what we do is we go tidy up, and our kids are like, what? And there's all these people going, oh, we'll do tidy up soon, do this thing. It's like, but have you shown them what that means? Have you helped them? Have you given them the tools to, we all do it. We all have that assumption that, tidying up, everyone knows what tidying up means, right? But yeah, we're not taught it. We're not taught about to think about what our environment is like and what our space is like and what that does to our brains and all that sort of stuff, or how to do it and how to approach it. And
Yeah.
with our kids as well, everything's so accessible now. I think when we were younger, you know, you might get the Argus catalogue or like
Oh,
watch the
yeah.
adverts.
August catalogue, yeah.
And I remember wanting a girl's world, right? I have no idea what a girl's world. I don't wear makeup. I don't do any of those things. I'm not, again, it's advertising, right? I must have been sold the dream that I needed a girl's
Yeah.
world. And I remember dying for a girl's world, but I had to wait. I really had to wait until it was Christmas or my birthday for those things. Whereas now I think everything's so accessible that our kids have got so much stuff as well because we can do it, right?
Yeah, I talk about it a lot with the instant gratification and delayed gratification.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, luckily, I think our generation is very lucky because we've had the delayed gratification, circling those things in the Argos book,
yeah, yeah.
uh, to seeing what the world's like now. But like Ben, I mean, my son's 20 and he's he's not obviously I've shown him delayed gratification, but the world, like with
Yeah, yeah,
Amazon and
yeah,
like, we used to, like, remember our price and Woolworths, like if
yeah,
we wanted
yeah.
the CD, we'd go down at the weekend and go, now this Spotify and iTunes.
Pen and
Yeah. And recording off radio with a cassette.
oh no, I've got him talking on it.
Exactly.
Ruined it. It's ruined the top 40 now.
Yeah. So we had delayed gratification, but
Yeah.
I do think that's, the younger generation, it's something that they're massively going to struggle with because everything's on tap straight away.
Yeah, and it's cheaper, right? It's not the expense it was, there's more money around, things are cheaper to buy, so actually it's easier to buy stuff. And then again, there's the expectation, you
Yeah,
see people before Christmas, all the things that people are buying for their kids, and it's just, getting themselves into debt for it. And, the expectation that their kids have got, and it's just, oh my God, the consumerism
yeah,
that comes
yeah,
through that is massive. And I'm not knocking anybody, right? Because it's it's not them as an individual, it's the world that they're living in that's telling them that they need all this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. It's how they think, society should be.
Yeah,
But actually, we're so far removed from actually like what humans are supposed to do that it's
yeah,
just so unnatural. But
yeah,
it's become natural just to go on a certain website and go, yeah, okay, it's coming
yeah,
tomorrow. But it's sad because it's like, if you think about it, it's like we'd, instead of going down to like the local town where you'd see all the other people and smile at them and say like, how are you? And, going into shops with a shopping list and just going around town, that we've lost that as well.
yeah. Yeah, that hanging out. I mean, that's what I used to do when I was a kid. We used to go into, I lived in Birmingham. I grew up in Birmingham. I can hear my accent coming around out because as soon as I speak to anybody who's north of the Watford Gap, it's like it all starts coming out. Um, but yeah, I mean, I used to go into town at the weekend, and me and my friends would just like walk around town, mooch around the
Yeah, yeah,
shops, like
yeah,
it was just part of what our existence was, it was what we did.
yeah,
And it wasn't necessarily about spending, it would be browsing and looking and, yeah,
yeah.
it's very
Very,
different.
very, very, very different times.
Yeah, very much so.
So so you work with people, like you go to their homes. Do you work with people online as well?
Yeah, so I during lockdown, so I started my business in September before lockdown.
Oh.
So I'd done a bit of working in people's homes, and that's how I started out. And then obviously we went into lockdown, so I did do some virtual stuff and people had time. And I was dubious when I first started on how it would work because I thought it was something that I needed to go in and do. But actually, again, I don't know, everyone's got a superpower, haven't they? And I think, I always talk about, that film I See Dead People.
Yeah.
Thought it was cool, but I said for me, it's always like I see space. So whenever I'm talking to somebody and they're showing me around the house, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see what I can do there. I can see
Yeah.
it. And I
Yeah. Yeah.
know exactly what needs to happen. So then I started working, doing virtuals and giving people step by steps on how to do things. And then about a year ago, I thought I wanted to move to a more of a membership model because what I wanted to do is be able to give a more of a community minded environment as well. So I wanted to be able to give people advice and guidance from my perspective. Part of the membership, there's like videos, libraries, all that sort of stuff. So there's a whole sort of thing they can go in and watch a 5-minute video, which will help them how to tackle like one particular area. But then I also work with them and do a roadmap, and we look at what needs to happen in the house, what the areas they need to change and stuff. But then there's also a Facebook community, so it's got something that allow everyone to get the feedback and a lot of it, like you say, it's the procrastination and you want someone to be proud of the little thing that you've just done, and most of the
Yeah.
people in your house are not going to do that. If you go, oh look,
No.
I just sorted the cutlery drawer, everyone's going to go, yeah, all right then.
Yeah, I didn't even notice.
And you
Yeah.
want everyone to be going, wow, you sorted the cutlery drawer, it's amazing. So I wanted to give people that. So yeah, I do both now. So now I've moved away from doing sort of just virtual stuff to being like, well, we've got the membership, and this, come into the membership, come in for us however long you need, work on whatever you need. If you need to go,
I suppose that works quite well because it's like with your members, are spurring each other on. They're on the same journey.
Yeah.
the end of the day, they're all after the same thing.
Yeah, and it's the sharing of ideas. We did a live the other week, and I do lots of other things on that. So far we've talked about habit stacking this month. So I do like a monthly live, and this month it was about habit stacking, which is an ADHD technique for, like,
Hmm.
where you think about your existing habits, and then you think about how you can build something else on top of that. So the one I use, again, you have to be a woman of a certain age, I think. I always try and do my pelvic floor exercises while I'm cleaning my teeth, because otherwise I'll never
No,
do them.
that's
So I'm trying to do this thing where I'm like, every time I clean my teeth, I'm going to do my pelvic floor exercises, and then that way I know I'm going to do it. But we talked about that, and then, like, next month we're going to talk about time blocking. So
oh, I
how to,
love time blocking.
yeah, I mean, that I only started, bearing in mind I'm a project manager and I'm like good at managing my time. I only started doing that about 18 months ago, and oh my God, it revolutionized my life completely.
Yeah,
Um,
game changer.
so I'm going to do a session on that, and then in a month or so time, I've got someone coming in, and she does life legacy planning. So she works with
Oh,
people to look at what you need to put
Nikki, is it
together.
Nikki?
No, 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 it's
No,
not
it's never.
Nikki.
Oh,
No,
right.
it's a girl. Yeah, it's a girl I've met online through, like, how you just meet people online,
You
don't
do.
you?
It's
By
great.
chatting to people, yeah. So she's got a whole thing that she does where she's like, and that's part of the reason why I was listening to your podcast as well. I was like, there may be some people that I might want to speak to. But, people that I can bring into the membership and
Yeah,
say, actually, let's do a session for you on this thing that's going to be useful for you. So there's lots of elements to living. It's called Simplify Your Life, my membership, and I called Simplify by George because for me, it's not just about throwing stuff out your house. It's about how can you make everything in your life function in a simpler way so that you can just be less stressed. And that's what
yeah,
it's about, really.
yeah. That's so true. I think us humans naturally try and overcomplicate things,
Yeah,
the simple things get overlooked. So
yeah.
having a membership where there's everybody doing it and cheering you on
It is.
is
It's
a good
just
thing.
so nice.
Yeah,
It's like this week, I just put a thing up saying, oh, I've got too much on this week. I can see I've got too much on. So the thing and even me, I use it for like accountability. I'm like, I'm going to sit down and see what I can actually take out my calendar this week
yeah,
because I cannot do it all. I've got to recognize that it's too much. And rather than trying to do it, and again, it's that permission thing, isn't it? Someone giving you permission
yeah,
to
yeah,
do that. And you go, oh,
yeah.
yeah, she's doing that. I could do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things as well, like we talk about like goal setting and women doing having all these responsibilities. And I work in a lot of PT groups, so they're going, right, okay, so now I've got to change my diet, I've got to go to the gym more, I've got to do this. And the first thing I say is, but what do you need to stop doing?
Yeah.
Because we constantly add
Yeah.
to the list. The to-do list gets longer and longer and longer, but we never sit there and go, right, okay, so I need to stop doing this. And it could
Yeah.
be scrolling, it could be
Yeah.
saying yes to everybody.
Yeah.
It could the littlest things. You need to stop doing things to be able to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah, and it's that thing, isn't it? Is that, your priorities go so far down the list when you've got children, when you're trying to do it all, you really are at the bottom of the heap of all of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Your
I talk a
priorities.
lot about self-care,
Mm,
and you'll always notice somebody in overwhelm because they'll say, when was the last time you've done something for yourself? And they'll either look at you horrified and you can tell they look guilty, they feel guilty,
yeah,
or they'll come out and say, well, I haven't got time for that, I've got to look after them first.
yeah,
And that's what makes me sad.
yeah. It is because, and I said this to my friend at the weekend. She always, whenever I say it to her, she's like, I hate that saying. And she always says it at me, but it's true. I can't, we need to find another saying so I can make her feel happy. But it's that thing of like putting your own oxygen mask on first.
That's on first.
And I know it is the most awful thing. She's like, don't say that. I hate it when you say that. And I'm like, I know, but it is so true, isn't it? And I'm guilty as the next, right? I don't do it all the time. I have definitely in the past year or so found myself in complete burnout situations where I suddenly have had to sit back and go, hang on a minute, it's happening again. I've got to stop. And you're right, it's about what do I stop? What's my priority? What do I actually want to do? So what's got to go?
Yeah,
Because something's got to go. because I
Yeah.
can't work at this rate and I can't run at this rate.
Yeah. And that feeling, it's like an alarm clock, isn't it? Again, that something needs to change.
Yeah.
Right back on my first podcast, I interviewed Javino McLean, and he said to me, you have to give yourself 200% so that you give everybody else 100%.
Yeah. It's
But
true,
even
isn't it?
so, you can still say that to people, and it's still because self care, a lot of people think it's selfish. That's a society thing as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also that thing, it's the guilt thing, isn't it? I saw a friend today. She runs her own membership, and we were talking about it because again, she's a mom. She's got two kids, so she gets this 6 hours in the day to do all this stuff, and then she works in the evenings, and then she's working at weekends, and and then she said, "Oh, I was going to give myself last Friday off," and she said, "But then my husband was working from home." And she said, I was going to go and like sit and watch some TV and just like watch some rubbish TV or whatever. She said, but then I couldn't because he was sort of like, well, what are you doing? And it's just like, oh my God, yeah, because then there's all this other external pressure of not just, she'd
Yeah.
got to the stage where she's like, I recognise I need it, but then having to justify that she needed it,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
to herself, but to other people around her. It was like, it's quite hard, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
all he can see is I'm working. Why are you not working? Because it's the work time in the day. But the fact is, her work is 24 hours a day because she's looking after the kids and she's,
Yeah.
doing the school run. And so it's like, it's a different, you can't compare the two. And if women don't take the time, if they've got young children, if they don't take some time in the day to
Yeah.
do some of the things that they need to do to look after themselves, then it's just, yeah, you can't expect to get a better outcome.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. So if anybody wants to work with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on, I'm usually hang out on Insta a lot. So
Right.
I'm Simplified by George everywhere. I've
Yeah.
got loads of other accounts all over the place, but don't do anything with them. Insta's my home ground. Um,
Right. Okay.
I've got, it's funny, isn't it, what you get used to, what you like working in, because some people are really Facebook or some people are really Insta.
Yeah.
I've got a free Facebook group as well, but you can find out if you find me on Insta or on my website, Simplified by George, you can find all of my other bits and pieces there. I've got, find out about the membership if you want to work with me. I've also got things, like free guides and stuff that people can access. So there's resources. I'm really conscious for me doing the work I do. I want everyone to be able to access it, whether it's, entry level free stuff, whether it's during lockdown, I did a series of things which were like 10-minute tasks. I put that into a book and self-published that. So there's a book that I've got, which is, £6 or something like that. So that I've tried to produce all these things or have all these options so that anybody can access at whatever level.
Yeah.
Because I just want to help people. I just feel I want to just go and take all the women in the world and round them all up and put them in a big fluffy blanket while I go and sort stuff out for them and then like put them back in and go, no, it's all right now. It's okay
Yeah.
now.
I fixed it.
Yeah, I fixed it. You can all function now. So it's all done. So yeah, it's just that need to try and like give everyone everything. So yeah, if you find me there, you can find all the stuff that I've got on offer at whatever level you can.
That's
You
amazing. I've got one last question, but being as you've
Go on.
listened to podcasts, you probably know what this is. I always
Oh,
say,
yeah, I know. And do you know what? When I was listening to podcasts, I was like, I'm going to prepare and I'm going to be really smart and I'm going to be like, hey, look at me. And then I'm like, now I'm going, oh, yeah, I didn't do that, did I?
George,
Oh,
tell me three good things about yourself, mate.
oh. My friends and I have been doing some work on this. We've been trying to do that thing, like
Your mind's
mantra.
gone completely blank.
Yeah, and we've been trying to do that thing, like where you write a mantra and like, then stick things because that whole thing about reprogramming
I
your
mean, yeah.
because you spend so much of your life being told that you're rubbish or that you are rubbish or you tell yourself that you're rubbish, so trying to say something. So I would say I think I am completely non-judgmental. So I think for me, anyone I work with, I just well, anyone I experience in life, I just think you never know what's going on in someone's life. And I always think, you know, you just have to think that everyone's coming from a place of kindness.
Yeah.
You just don't know what's happened in the morning. So I think that's something that's really important to me,
Yeah.
that I think is a strength of mine. Um, then all my other things are like, I'm organised, I'm analytical, I'm all those things that are like, you know, they're sort of things which are not to do with me as a human. They're just like, oh yeah, that's things I'm good at. Yeah, I would say that. And I suppose with that, you know, my friend was saying to me, she said, because you're really kind as well. And I'm like, I'm not really kind, am I? She was like, yeah, you are really kind. Isn't it funny how we just don't think that we're kind? Because most people are kind, right?
Yeah.
People are.
Yeah. I
So
believe.
yeah, I would say that. And then I would say the other thing is that I am really, really enthusiastic and joyful about helping people.
I love that. See, you went that bad, was it?
No, it wasn't that bad. I do feel like I've cheated slightly because I did have that. My friend and I were sitting down this weekend. We went up to London this weekend and we sat down with bits of paper and we're like, right, come on, write out your strengths and weaknesses, you know, like real old school stuff of like, come on, let's get them out. Let's start talking about them. Because we're both trying to, you know, reprogram our minds basically. We're both trying to do that thing of like stop listening to people telling us that we're no good and telling us, or ourselves telling us that we're not any good, and just
Yeah,
tell ourselves that we are good.
you are. That's it. That's all you need to keep doing. Keep doing that, and you start to rewire.
Yeah. It is, you know, you see many people talking about it. I was listening to Mel Robbins talking about it the other day, and you know, you see all these people talking about it, and you just think it feels like it feels silly, doesn't it, when you're doing it?
It
But
feels silly, and I think what I always say to people as well is you have to be careful, because if you are the kind of person that says, I don't know, let's say you're rubbish at decluttering. Let's go with that. Let's stick on topic. And then all of a sudden you write a mantra going, I'm absolutely fantastic at decluttering. Your brain will go,
yeah,
Amy,
yeah, you're so
really?
right.
Really? So the brain does need data. It needs proof.
Yeah.
So you need to do that, back it up with something. So your brain goes, well, actually, yeah. And then you just keep building on that and building on that.
You're so
Uh,
right. It's so
yeah,
right, because that's one of the things that I've always struggled with. Because I think, you know, going on this journey of being self-employed and doing all this stuff, I've always thought in the back of my head, I'm rubbish at sales. I don't do sales. I can't. I'm rubbish at sales. I don't do sales. Of course, I don't sell. I just talk about the things that I like. But actually, it's taking. I still don't believe it. But I've got a business, and I help people. You know, like people buy
there's your
from.
data.
Yeah, but it's still like, oh yeah. But then it's because it's what you grow up with, isn't it? It's like it's
Yes,
so ingrained in like what you think that thing is and what you think you are in that thing that it takes a long time to. You're right, data is so important.
yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Well, you've been an absolute inspiration. I recommend anybody that just wants kind of the first step in getting involved in like a group, getting some of your free things that you send out. You should absolutely do it, because I believe that making our life simpler in any way is the key to happiness.
Def-
Yes. So
Definitely.
thank you for joining
Well,
me.
thank you. It's been great. I love it.